Alright guys, welcome back to the second part of the Django Rest Framework and React.js series. In this one we are going to integrate our Django application from part number 1 with the React application that we are going to create in part number 2. So in this part, we are going to load the data from our API into the React application. And the content plan for this particular part is how to create a React application. We will take a look at the useState and useEffect hook and how they work. We are going to attempt to fetch the data from our API using axios. However, we will at first fail. And then we will need to install and configure Django course headers in order to fix this. And we will later work with props and also apply React Memo. So this is the content plan for this particular part. Hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get started. Alright guys, so in order to get started, we need to install Node.js. So I'm at nodejs.org, and over here we see two versions. The one recommended for most of the users is this long-term support version. So make sure to download it, and we will see each other in a few minutes. Alright, so assuming that you already downloaded and installed Node.js, let's proceed. I'm going to start a new terminal window. So this one is for Django, and the one over here will be for React. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can precisely see what I'm going to type over here. And I have this directory, DJ React integration, and over here I already have the backend folder. So this is for the Django application, and next to it I'm going to create a new one for React, and I'm going to call it frontend. So let's do this. cd DJ React integration, and with the use of npx create React app, and then we need to provide the name of the application. So in this case, I'm just going to put in frontend, and I'm going to press enter, and we are going to create a React application project. So let's do this, and we'll need to wait a few seconds or even minutes. All right, so we successfully created a React application. As the next step, let's open Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to go to cd frontend, and then before running npm start, I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. So let's do the cd frontend, and then code dot, and right now we can start npm. We can run npm start. Okay, so let's wait a few seconds. Over here we have a notification that we are starting the development server, and then let's open this Visual Studio Code and let's access the source directory. So over here we can see our project, the default template, and how this works. Well, we will talk about this in more details when we will start our project, but for now what is important is to go to the app.js, because over here we have basically the code that we see over here, and it comes with the app CSS and logo SVG. So whenever we change something over here, for example, we can put in here a div with a hello world. All right, we will see hello world, and it's centered because of the class name app, which is in the app CSS. Okay, so we have over here text align center, and this app.js is the parent component, which is imported to the index.js, and over here this is the place where React renders a React element into the DOM. So we have our app, and we have something like document get element by ID root. So in order to understand this, we need to go to the public folder where we have our index.html template, and if we scroll a little bit down, we can change, for example, the React app. So over here, I don't know if you can see it, but we have React app in the title. And if we put in, for example, test app, and then we can see that this title has changed. So below in the body section, we also have a div with an ID root, and this is what this is referring to in the index.js. So over here we have this document get element by ID root, and this is where we are putting our app component. So as the next step, let's go back to app.js, and over here inside of this function app, I'm going to create a variable called value, and I'm going to set it initially to 0, and below the div with the hello world, I'm going to place a paragraph where I'm actually going to display the value. So let's save this, and as you can see, this works perfectly. We see the 0, but now let's create a function that will update the value. We will only have an increment function. So once I click on a button, I should see instead of 0, 1, and we will see what will actually happen. So for this, we'll need an event and a button, and we'll link an event to the button, and this will be an on-click event. And over here, I'm just going to put in an empty anonymous function, so I don't see any errors. And now I'm going to actually create the real function that I want to link up with this on-click event. So it's going to be called handle increment. And what this will do, it will take the value and it will basically update it. So we can write value and then, or we can just put in ++ value. And let's console log the value. And also, as mentioned before, we need to link this handle increment to onClick. And we can actually pass an event and console log the event. And yeah, we will see what do we have over here. So I'm going to save this. And then we see that the button is missing a label. So let's go back and put in increment. All right. And let's save it again. Let's right click inspect and let's go to the console. All right. So now I'm going to press this button. We can see the event and we can see the one in the console. However, we don't see one on the screen. And let's press it again and we see 2. So now the value is 2. However, we still see 0 on the screen. So what we need to do is to bring in state. And with state, we will have a situation where if the state changes, the component will get re-rendered. And to understand how this works, let's take a look at some examples in practice. So I'm going to set a const and I'm going to put in an array, because in a second I'm going to be using array destructuring. And then I'm going to bring in the useState hook from React. And inside I'm going to put in the default value. And here inside the array, the value will be the actual value by default set to 0. And then I'm going to write set value. And with set value, we will set a new value. So to take a look how this will work in practice, I'm actually going to get rid of the console logs right now. I'm just going to put in set value and then value +1. All right. And now let's save this and let's go back to the browser. And we have failed to compile because right now we have 2 values over here and over here. So let's comment this out. Let's save this and let's go back. And right now, value has already been called. Let's refresh. Okay, so the error is gone and let's press increment. And there it is, increment, increment, increment. And if we put in a console log over here, running app.js, let's take a look what we will have. Initially, we have running app.js. And then if I press increment, we have running app.js again. And then again, and again, and again, and so on, okay? If we refresh, we have running app.js. The state is 0, and then if we press increment, we have running app.js again, and again. So basically we change the state and we make this component run again. All right. Okay, so as the next step, let's create our favorite value. So let's have an opportunity to save a favorite value on a button click. So we will need another button and we will need another state. So I'm going to put in const my value and then set my value like this and use state, and by default this is going to be null. So by default I don't have my favorite value. And then we will need to add another paragraph maybe. So here I'm not going to have value but my value. And then let's create another button, and here we will have handle save my value, something like this. Okay, so now let's copy this, const handle save my value, and for now let's just write console log saved and then value. Okay, so we also need to change the label save favorite, maybe something like this, and let's save it. And now we see two buttons. Okay, so we can increment save, and we have saved two. However, if we simply refresh the page, or let's go back and console log also my value over here, console log my value, okay, we still see null. Okay, and we don't see anything over here because this is null. So we can do a check. If my value, then we are going to display the favorite value, and in other case we are just going to display something like this. So let's save this, and there it is. Okay, so every time we refresh the page we see null, even if we increment it, save it, and then we have it confirmed that it's 4, but then if we refresh the page we still see null. So how to do this? Well, first of all, we don't see any changes because we didn't call set my value. Okay, this is why we don't see any updates. So the first improvement that we can actually do is to put in set my value and set it to the value like this. So let's see if this will work. I'm going to increment, save favorite, and there it is. Increment, save favorite, and there it is. Okay, so this is the first improvement. The second one will be related to actually having this value after the page is refreshed. So let's do this one more time, and as you can see we have null over here. So what we can do is to use local storage. So let's write local storage set item, and then we need to provide some name. I'm going to put in my favorite, something like this, and I'm going to set it to value. So maybe I'm going to call it my fav val, something like this. And right now we are putting it into the local storage so that we can actually, in theory, grab it. So const my fav val is equal to local storage get item, and we need to put in the name. So I'm going to put in my fav val. All right, and now I'm going to console log my fav val like this. So let's save this, let's hit refresh, and let's do it one more time. Increment, save favorite, and then I'm going to refresh, and as you can see right now we have 3 over here. We have null for my value. Okay, so maybe just to make it crystal clear, I'm going to put in my fav val. Okay, sorry, this is going to be my val, and here we are going to put in my fave val like this. So let's save this and let's take a look at the results, and there they are. So we have my val null and my fave val 3. So this is because we didn't actually update the state for my value. And let's try it to do this. So here we are getting the item, and we can check if my fave val, by the way, I choose this name horribly. I even can't pronounce it. Sorry about this, guys. And what we can try to do over here is to set my value to this my fave val. And let's see what we will have. Let's save this. And something didn't work. So something bad is happening over here, and here we have the error. Too many re-renderers. React limits the number of re-renderers to prevent an infinite loop, and we actually have an infinite loop over here. So the reason for this is that we get this value, then we set a new value, the component re-renders, and we still get this value. Okay, so after it re-renders, we get this value again, and then we set it again, and then it re-renders and we get it again, and then we set it again, and you see the cycle over here. So this is a problem, and React has a solution for this, and it's related to dealing with side effects. What are side effects? I'm going to leave a link to a blog in the description. But basically, by using the useEffecthook, we are going to tell React that the component that we are using, that we are working with, needs to do something after render. So let's try this. I'm going to put in useEffect. All right, so we have it imported right now. And first we will have an anonymous function, and then the array of dependencies, and we will return to the dependencies in just a second. And basically an empty array of dependencies is like just run this one time. So if we put this inside the useEffecthook, we will run this one time. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to refresh just to get rid of the errors. And as you can see, now everything seems to be okay. So we can put in a console log over here. Hello world from useEffect. Okay, and we have hello world from useEffect. So as you can see right now, we have my value and my favorite value. So I can increment it, save as favorite, I can refresh it. The value is 0, but my favorite value stored in my value remained 6. So this is how it's working. And this will rerun if we put something into the dependencies array. So we can try to put in, as an example, the value. All right. So let's see how this will work right now. I'm going to increment. So the value has changed, and we have again hello world from useEffect. And then I'm going to press it one more time, and we see again. So right now we have hello world from useEffect, hello world from useEffect, and one more time hello world from useEffect. Let's see if we will have the fourth time. Increment, and we have hello world from useEffect. Okay, so basically this is how it's working. And useEffect you will use most of the times for fetching data from APIs. So this is exactly what we need right now. So this is the API that we created in the previous part, and we have only 2 post objects, and we would like to load them into our React application. And we will be using for this the useEffect hook. And what I'm going to do is to maybe get rid of the console logs first, because we have too many of them. Okay. And right now, I'm going to create a const posts and set posts. And this is going to be useState with the default value of an empty array. So this is the first step. Then what we are going to do is to put in, for example, another useEffect hook. And before we actually put something over here, let's install Axios. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to quit the development server from running. And then let's run npm install Axios. And let's wait a few seconds. All right, let's put in npm start. Okay, and right now we can return to our useEffect, but first let's bring in Axios. So we want to import Axios from Axios like this. Okay, and inside of useEffect, we can now run Axios get, and somewhere above, I'm going to set a variable called URL, and this is going to be this URL from Django Rest Framework. I'm going to put it in a string, and now I'm going to put in URL. So currently we have a promise, and then I'm going to grab the result, and I'm going to simply console log the result. I'm going to put in curly bracelets over here, so I can actually also log console log result data. Okay, and if something goes wrong, we will catch an error. Okay, so we will have an error, and then we will simply console log the error. All right, so let's try this. Will it work? Let's find out. Let's go to the test app, and here it is. Here is an error, so something went wrong, and the error precisely tells us what went wrong. So access to XML HTTP request at localhost API posts from origin HTTP localhost 3000 has been blocked by course policy. No access control allow origin. Header is present on the requested resource. So basically, what we need to do right now is to allow those two origins to work with each other. So we want to allow in our Django application this localhost 3000. Okay, so we can say, yeah, it's okay for us to work with this origin. And in order to do this, we will need an external package called Django course headers. So let's go to our Django application. Let's quit the development server from running, and let's install Django course headers. Pip install Django course headers, and we will take care of the configuration in just a second. First, let's run the development server again, Python manage py run server. Okay, and I actually have to open Visual Studio Code for Django application, so sorry about this, guys. Code, there it is, okay. And I'm going to put in Python manage py run server again. All right, so first of all, we need to go to the settings py, and we will have to bring into the installed apps list course headers. Okay, so let's put in course headers like this. course headers is actually together, I think. Course headers, yeah. And this will be third party. So these are third party apps. And here we will have our apps, just to distinguish our apps. All right, and then we'll need course allowed origins. And this is going to be a list. And I'm just going to copy this local host and put it into the Django application in a string. Okay, without this how's it called? I don't know. Without this. So let's save this and let's see if this will work right now. I'm going to refresh, and we have some error, connection refused, and course headers posts. Okay, so I didn't add a comma, and this is the error. Okay, so right now if we save this, the development server will run again, we'll restart, and then if we hit refresh over here, we still have access to has been blocked by course policy. So in this case, I'm going to go to the documentation because I think we are missing middleware. So Django course headers. I'm going to open the first link, and here is the setup. So we added course headers, and yeah, this part is missing, the middleware. So you will also need to add middleware class to listen on response. So this is the missing part. So we need to put in course middleware above the common middleware. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to close this, and let's go back to the Django application. Common middleware we have over here. So let's put the course headers above. Let's save this and let's try this one more time. Let's hit refresh, and there it is. Okay, so here we have the response, and then below the response data. So here we are accessing the data. All right. So basically right now we have integrated Django with React. And as the next step, we are going to bring in those elements that we see in the console to the browser. So in order to do this, we need to jump back into Visual Studio Code, into our React application. And I'm going to create a new component. So inside of the source directory, I'm going to create a folder called components. And here I'm going to create a new one called post list.js. Okay. And this is going to be a function component. So let's put in post list. All right. And below we want to export default post list. And inside what we are going to do is to return something. So let's put in return, and let's put in a div. And here we are going to put in, here are the posts, or here we will have the posts. It doesn't matter right now. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to bring in the post list to the app.js, because right now, if we hit refresh, we won't see this component inside. We want to import the post list component into the app.js. So what I'm going to do is to start typing below the button, or I'm going to add a horizontal line maybe. And here I'm going to start typing post list. Okay, so the auto import is available. Okay, so here is the import, post list from. All right, and we are importing it from components, post list. And right now, if I save this, we have here are the posts. Okay, so right now what we need to do is to set our posts, because right now in the useEffect hook we have axios, and we are basically console logging the data, the response. So what I'm going to actually do is to create a new function called fetch data. Fetch data like this. I'm going to grab the content from over here, put it inside the fetch data, and then I'm going to call fetch data over here. It will be a little bit readable, better readable. And right now, what we need to do is to simply set posts to the response.data. Okay, so let's save this. We won't see any changes because we actually need to work on our posts. So as the next step, we will need to introduce the topic of props, because currently we have the posts loaded in our main component, in our app component, and we want to pass the posts to the post list, because this is the place where we want to display them. We could, of course, display them directly over here, but it will be better and easier to manage this application if we would split it to blocks, in this case components, in this case child components. So I'm going to put in something like data. You can call it whatever you want. This is going to be the first props that we are going to create, and I'm going to set it to posts. Okay, so right now I'm sending the posts through the prop data to the post list. Okay, so now what we can do is to get rid of those console logs. And do we have any other console logs? I hope not. And then I'm going to simply save this, and then I'm going to go to the post list. And right now we can do several things over here. We could, for example, get the data directly like this, but I'm just going to do it in, let's call it a traditional way. I'm passing props, and below I'm going to console log, and let's say post list, maybe post list, and then I'm going to put in props data. Okay, so let's save this and let's see what do we have over here. And there we have it. So post list is inside of the post list, and here are our data. Okay, so we passed the data from the app.js to the post list through the prop that we named data. And yeah, now in the post list we can actually use it. So let's do this next. So I'm going to go to the return, and over here I'm just going to work with this div. So here this is going to be the parent element, and actually I didn't tell you that in the component you have to have a parent element, because if you try to do something like this, div hello and then div world, you will get an error, and not only in the code editor, also you won't be able to compile. So React requires a parent element. It can be, for example, a div. It can be, for example, a React fragment. We will talk about React fragments a little bit later. So let's save this right now, and we see hello world. So right now we can grab the data. We can actually store it in a variable like data is equal to props data, or we can do the structuring. So we can write const data in curly bracelets is equal to props. So now we are picking the data out of props, and over here we can perform the map method. So let's do this. Data map, let's grab a single item, And then what we are going to do is to return a div where we will have inside of this div the item name, not name, I think it was title. So let's go ahead and check it. Item title, yeah, item title. So let's save this, and there we have it. Test post 2. So now we fully integrated Django with React because we are grabbing test post 2 from our API and using it in our React application. So here we have a warning that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So we can actually, as a key, use the ID. So in order to fix this warning, we can put inside of the div, inside of our parent element, key, and then item.id. All right, let's save this. Let's refresh. And as you can see, the warning is gone. We still see a warning related to the logo, but we can fix it very easily. We just need to go to app.js, and over here, we are not using the logo. So let's just get rid of it. And now if we refresh, okay, we have another warning over here that the React hook useEffect has a missing dependency in my favorite value. Okay, but this is just an example that doesn't make much sense. That's why let's just ignore for now this warning and let's move on. So as the next step, what we want to do is to also display the description. And again, we could do it inside of our post list JS file, inside of our post list component, but we can create another component called post item JS. And over here, what we are going to do is to create another function component. So const, and if you have React snippets installed as the extension, you can write sfc and then post item. And as you can see, this makes your life a little bit easier. And over here, we can put in div, and we will expect some props. So we will expect the title, or let's just do it the same way I did it over here. Okay, so we are going to expect the title, and the description. So the title and the description needs to be passed from the post list to the post item. And we are going to pick it up from props. So we actually need to pass props over here. All right. And then what we are going to have is maybe h3, and we will display in h3 the title. And below we will have a paragraph where we are going to display the description. So the post item is basically ready, but we still need to work on the post list. We need to bring in the post item because it will be the child component of the post list. And we need to, after importing the post item into the post list, we need to provide the props of title and the description. So let's do this. I'm going to save the post item. And now instead of returning a div over here, what we are going to do is to return the post item, okay? And the auto import is again available. And we now need to put in the title. And here we are going to have the item title. And then we are going to also have the description, which is going to be the item description. And also let's not forget about the key, and this is going to be the item.id. So now let's see how this will work. I'm going to refresh the page, and there it is. Okay, so I did the page refresh isn't required, but I wanted to basically see the console. So I wanted to have a fresh window in the console. That's why I did the refresh. And here we have it, test post 2. So this is working. We created our first React application. Now the problem might be that we see the post list once, twice, and the third time. Okay, and then if we increment, we still see the post list. If we increment, we still see the post list. If we press save favorite, we still see the post list. Okay, so because the app.js changed its state, it re-rendered, so all the child components get re-rendered again. And it might not make always sense because, as you know, the data over here didn't change. So we can make one very simple improvement. In the post list, we can actually bring in memo. So we want to import from React Memo, and this is a higher order component, and now we can wrap it, we can wrap with memo our post list. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to refresh one more time so we will have a fresh window, and then I'm going to press increment, 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 and we don't see any changes because the props didn't change, the post list didn't change. Okay, so we are not re-rendering the post list and we aren't re-rendering the post item. Okay, because without React Memo, if we put in console log post item like this, and I'm going to save the post item, and then I'm going to get rid of memo. Going to save this, and yeah, let's refresh this one more time, and let's press increment, and now we see post list and post item, post list and post item. But if we put in memo over here, this will also affect the child components of the post list. So in this case, it will also affect post item. So not only the post list won't get re-rendered, but the post item won't get re-rendered as well. Okay. All right, so there's one more thing left in this tutorial. We will send something to the API, and let's handle this right now. In our app.js, let's create a new button, and we will call it send new data. Maybe that would be a pretty good name. Send new data, something like this. And here we will have handle send new data, and this is the function that we need to create. So let's do it over here. And for this, we will be using axios. All right, so in order to do this, let's first specify the data, because we are dealing with very simple examples. We are skipping authentication, authorization, we are skipping forms. So we need to have a data object that we want to actually send. So what I'm going to do is to put in const data is equal to, and then I'm going to provide the title. So the title is going to be, yeah, maybe let's use backticks, and let's put in test title, and let's actually put in the value over here. Okay, and then we will have the description. So the description is going to be the description of the value. And we can actually also use backticks over here and pass in the value. Okay, and what else do we have over here? We have the author. We have the author. So this is going to be a tricky part, because in order for this to be working, we will need to go back to our Django application for just a second. So I'm just going to put me. All right, so now we have our data that we want to send. And as the next step, we are going to use axios post. We are going to use the same URL, and then we are going to have some response. So again, let's put in console log. Maybe let's put in directly a response data. And then in case of an error, let's put in catch, and then error, and then console log error. Okay. So yeah, this should work. However, it won't. It won't because first of all, we need to pass in the data. So we are now actually sending the data, but this still won't work. And let's find out why. Send new data, and we have error, internal server error. Let's take a look at it. Attribute error, collections order dict object has no attribute created. So the problem is somewhere else. This might not be precisely the problem that you see over here. So let's take a look at what do we have in our Django application. In our Django application, if we go to a views.py file, we didn't actually finish the logic for the post request. And this is what we need to do right now. We need to basically fetch our author, because if we take a look at the models, this is a foreign key to the user. So in order to do this, let's go back to views.py, and let's focus on this block, add logic. So first of all, we can print the data that we are getting. So print request data. Okay. So let's save this and let's see what do we have over here. I'm going to press send new data, and then we have this error. But before, we can actually see that we are putting title, test title 0, description, the description of value 0, and author, and here is my my username. So let's try to get this user and pass it to the serializer when saving. So first of all, I need to go to the Django application, and I see that I don't have the import of the user model. So I'm going to do it right now from Django contrib auth models. We want to import the user. And here we can put in the user is equal to, and then user objects get, where the username is going to be equal to request data. Okay, so request data, we printed it out over here, and wrong direction, sorry guys. And here we have the author. Okay, so we need to grab the author. In this case, let me make this bigger so you can see better. Okay, we want to grab the author of the data that we are getting. So request data dot request data, and then inside author, let's get the author. Okay, so having this, we can now write serializer, save, and then what we need to do is to simply set the author as this user that we are getting. And this should do the trick. This should work right now. And let's find out. Let's hit refresh. I'm going to right click inspect again, and then I'm going to press the send new data. And there it is. So this is the data that we are getting. However, we don't see it on the screen just yet. So if we refresh the page, we see it over here, test title 0. Okay. So the order is that the newest posts are put in at the end. Okay, so in order to do this, I'm going to create a const new data, and I'm going to pick up all the previous data, so all the previous posts, and at the end I'm going to add response.data, and finally I'm going to set posts as new data. Okay, let's check this out. So I'm going to increment it first and then send new data, and there it is. Okay, so we did an update on the front end in this case. And then if we refresh it, we will see the same result because we have the same in our API. So let's hit refresh, and there it is. And then if we refresh it over here, we see those post objects as well. All right, guys, this was a pretty long one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the next one, we are going to start working with the semantic UI. We are going to start learning semantic UI. And on the fourth part, we are going to create an API for our project. So with the fourth part, we will begin working on our invoice application demonstrated in part number 1. All right, so thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and bye-bye.